there is a great need for change and innovation in the oil, gas and energy industry. Our next guest is a strong believer in the need to build a new digital-based technology for this industry. He explains why you as leaders need to act on the ambitions. Meet the CEO of Aker BP, Karl Johnny Hersvik, in dialogue with ONS Program Director Ingvild Mæland.
Hi everybody and welcome to this ONS Digital Conference. My name is Karl Johnny Hersvik, everybody says Kalle, and we're here at Vagle at the site of the Performinator, which is a research project aimed at building a fully autonomous rig using a live digital twin. I think this is actually the first one in the world.
We're in the midst of a very volatile macro picture. Tell me a little bit about what are the main challenges for the industry right now?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is certainly the most volatile and also the most challenging macro environment, at least I have been a part of in my career in the oil and gas business. But I really think that the challenges have been dormant for quite a while. The oil and gas industry fundamentally needs to change. We need to lower our cost, increase our productivity, and probably most important of all, we need to lower our footprint and our emissions to create a sustainable business for a long time. For Aker BP, this is a multi-pronged approach, but in the heart of it is to be at the forefront of digital and technology. We think that digital is going to be one of the key enablers, both to reduce cost, to increase productivity, and not the least, to reduce our CO2 emissions, to create this sustainable business model for everybody in the oil and gas business.
Karl Johnny, you've been on the forefront of pushing for data liberation, and I see us very, very passionate about building a new digital technology-based industry. Why is this so important for you?
Well, I think actually the industry as a whole, and by that I mean the oil and gas industry and not just Aker BP, is in the middle of a huge transition. The pressure from the capital markets, from ESG issues, from cost issues, and now recently from COVID-19, which has really tested how adaptable we are as an industry, are going to push us to create new innovation, new ways of making money in the future. And to me and to Aker BP, being in the forefront of the digital revolution is not even a choice. It's mandatory in order to stay at a low cost and a high productivity edge. I don't even think you have to be very wise to come up with this question. You just have to look at what's happening around you.
Talking about doing, we're standing here in the midst of an impressive and massive drilling technology project. Tell us about this site.
So this is the so-called Performinator site. Back in 2017, Aker BP decided to explore the potential of a fully autonomous drilling rig supported by a digital twin and an open control system. And here we are today, and this is the test site. We have built a real size test site to explore both the robotics from Canrig, the control system from Ply, the tools delivered from Halliburton, and we've done it in a one-team fashion. So this is basically the mock-up. This is exactly how it would look offshore.
I see you as very passionate about to really deliver on this project, but you could have chosen a different strategy. You could have been reactive, saying that I depend on someone else to do it, to really research and prove the technology. Why is it important for you, and what has been the driver to really deliver on this?
I think there are actually two angles into this question. So the first one is the project in itself, right? We had a need. We had to replace a drilling rig out at Valhall, and we wanted to do that with something that was future fit and something that really changed the way we did our business. The second one is, in Aker BP, if we're really going to explore that digital edge, we need to actually do projects that does in fact explore that edge. And you can't do that by sitting in the backseat and allowing somebody else to explore that edge. So the technology is one part, Ingvild, but there's the organizational part, the decision-making part. How do we control risk? How do we actually move technology out of the labs and into where it counts, which is the front end of our operations? And by doing projects such as this, not only do we explore that technology edge, but we also explore Aker BP and the industry's ability to transform that technology into real value outtake, reduce cost, and increase productivity.
We were hit by a pandemic, which also had influence on this project. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, of course, from a progress standpoint, it did nothing good for the project. I think that's pretty clear, and I think that's probably hit just about every project in the oil and gas industry, and also in a lot of other industries. I mean, the situation is actually quite severe. But it also allows us to test different ways of collaborating. And this is probably a good test of what happens when you need to do something, right? So remote collaboration, data transfer, cloudification of technology. I mean, it's really driven us to be more sure, if we ever doubted, more sure about the ability to move to a digital edge and how much resilience and how much cost effectiveness that actually creates.
And I want to dig into the collaboration because you mentioned your partner on this project. Tell me a little bit about how you work with alliances and how you really push for collaborative solutions.
Yeah, so first and foremost, this is a state of mind almost, right? So when we talk about partners, we talk about ecosystems and we talk about them as one team. To me, it doesn't really matter what kind of badge you're wearing as long as you're driving towards the same goal. So the one team approach, the fact that we're working together in an integrated fashion is fundamentally important. I don't really think you could have done something like this by having a normal customer vendor type of relationship. You need to develop trust, you need to be able to fail, you need to have that confidence in the team to fail early. Because if you're moving something like this out into the North Sea and you haven't really explored also the risk sides of it, I mean, you're probably going to have a very, very difficult time. So the alliance concept for us is just a way of actually manifesting that one team feeling, that one goal where we're trying to get everybody to drive in the same direction.
What are your experience when it comes to technology and leadership? What's really needed for our leaders to push for change?
Well, I think this is a really good question and probably the crucial question. So probably a bit superficial, but I used to say that technology is easy, but implementation and change is really hard, right? And if the thing that's happening when you apply technology to change processes, you speed everything up. And it's gone tremendously fast, right? So just thinking about it, I mean, the first iPhone in 2007, that's 13 years ago, right? Who can imagine living without a smartphone today? Spotify 2008 revolutionized pretty much overnight the way we listen to music and the music industry. Tesla is doing the same to the car industry. And that means that our ability to change and the way we lead the organizations and the people inside our organization, they need to be adaptive to this change. So this is one of the reasons that we actually like projects like this, because it allows us to explore that technology frontier, not just from a technology perspective, but from a decision-making perspective, from a risk implementation perspective. But most of all, how do we change our processes? How do we as a company interact both inside the company, but also with vendors? This is the really crucial question.
You talk about the speed of change and the accelerated processes. What does it mean for leadership requirements?
Well, I actually think there are two fundamental requirements that change. So the first one is to really understand what's going on. You need a much deeper knowledge about your processes, the technology bases, and for digital data structure, data architecture. You really need to fundamentally understand what's going on. Otherwise, you can't really make good decisions. So spending time on re-educating yourself is much more important now than it's ever been before. And second, this has to do with the way you run a project. So you need a broader lens, more collaboration, teams that work not only in function, but across functions. We are talking about sprints rather than linear project developments. Everything moves in stages rather than kind of slowly and linearly along the road. And you need to run a lot of processes concurrently. You can't allow one to run ahead of the other because they all depend on each other. It's a new way of leading. It's a new way of developing projects and technology in organizations.
You talk about the people, and I also hear you saying that understand your core business, be bold, be willing to take risk. And what does this mean for your people in your organization? What the people you will look for in the future?
A lot, but I think there are a couple of, I would say, key credentials, right? So if you're going to go down this road of digital, cutting-edge technology, rapid change, failure is a part of the game. And the oil and gas industry, we don't like to fail. But we need to fail. We need to celebrate failures because that's a key component to learning, right? So in Aker BP, we do that too. We hate to fail, but we're really pretty adamant when it comes to learning from failure. We're preoccupied with understanding what went wrong. We rarely talk about our successes, but we really spend time as a leadership group on our failures. And I think that means that also for all the people in the organization, they need to understand that failure is allowed. You need to be able to have that mentality, but you need to do that not inside the operational environment, but in a sandbox like, for example, the Performinator.
Building on that, technology. Do you see Aker BP being in a pole position on digital solutions?
From a holistic perspective, it means outside the E&P business, probably not. Probably quite a way to go, actually. Inside the oil and gas, we may be closer, but it really doesn't matter to us. So we're more preoccupied where we are as an organization and how fast we can drive these processes than what everybody else is doing, right? So we still believe that this is a competitive edge, but we're pretty preoccupied in understanding what we need ourselves and driving up the pace and getting to this, I would say, crucial point where basically the solution space opens up, the ecosystems exist, etc. And I'm really excited because now I can start to see it. A couple of years ago, I thought that was a pretty long way off. And now, 2 years down the road, I can really start to see that you can actually see the components in this ecosystem moving. Are we preoccupied with being in the pole position? No, not really. But we're preoccupied with the pace of change.
Karl Johnny, thank you for joining us. It was great talking to you.
And thank you, Ingvild. It's been a pleasure.